Money is a strange thing. It's supposed to be the most rational invention ever, a tool of trade, a measure of value, the bedrock of civilization. And yet, for most of history, humanity has enthusiastically used absolutely anything as money. Shells, feathers, beans, even giant boulders that nobody could move, and one that literally sank to the bottom of the sea. If aliens ever dig through Earth's economic history, they'll assume we were either brilliant improvisers or deeply confused magpies. And they'd be right. So, let's take a guided tour of the Museum of Monetary Madness, a place where salt pays soldiers, beans buy turkeys, and prestige is measured in poultry, pebbles, and the occasional human skull. Let's start small, literally. Before shiny metal coins, there was a cowrie shell, smooth, white, curved like a tiny purse, and for thousands of years, the global superstar currency. From 3000 BCE China to 19th century West Africa, these little shells financed trade, dowries, and depressingly the slave trade. Europeans even imported barrels of them to Africa, where they became a cruel conversion rate. 12,000 shells for a person. The genius and tragedy of the cowrie economy was that it was both pretty and practical. It didn't rust, it didn't rot, and best of all, you could wear a fortune around your neck. Try doing that with an ATM card. Still, imagine the chaos of inflation. One lucky beachcomber, and suddenly you're Jeff Bezos of the Bronze Age. Of course, seashells are great until you live somewhere with none of those cute animals. What's a more northern empire to do? Easy. Pick something equally shiny, essential, and slightly addictive. Salt, the world's most glamorous seasoning, was once so valuable that Roman soldiers got paid in it. That's where we get the word salary from. Salarium, the Latin salt. Today, you sprinkle it on fries. Back then, it paid for empires. Why? Because salt was life. It kept food from rotting, wounds from festering, and soldiers from rioting. Across history, entire cities, from Timbuktu to Venice, became rich just by selling what modern supermarkets practically give away. Chinese dynasties waged salt wars. Ethiopians used salt bars, a mole, like coins. Gandhi even walked 240 miles to protest a British salt tax. It's humbling to think the same white powder that now causes mild blood pressure concerns once kept civilization alive. But enough about minerals. Let's move to something more delicious. Because why just pay your taxes when you can eat them afterward? In ancient Mesoamerica, the Maya and Aztec civilizations ran on cacao beans. These little brown nuggets of joy were money, food, and spiritual offering all in one. Aztec merchants priced everything in beans. A turkey, 100 a prostitute, 10 avocado, 3. Yes, the first avocado inflation crisis predates Instagram by 500 years. Naturally, counterfeiting became a problem. Some entrepreneurial scammer scooped out the cacao, filled it with dirt, and glued the shell shut. Early inflation, quite literally baked in. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived, they were stunned. They'd drink their money, one probably muttered, clutching his gold coins like a confused tourist. Still, you have to admire a society that made its currency smell that good. Imagine paying rent in Snickers bars. Honestly, I'd sign up. Now, let's fly east, or more accurately, let's flutter. Because while the Aztecs traded in beans, others built their economies on birds. Across Polynesia and Papua New Guinea, money didn't jingle, it shimmered. The prize currency? Feathers. In Fiji and the Santa Cruz Islands, red feathers from tiny honeyeater birds were woven into belts and coils that symbolized wealth and prestige. In Papua New Guinea, iridescent feathers from birds of paradise were even more valuable. Because obviously, if you're going to have currency, it might as well look fabulous. The irony? In a region with no precious metals, the color red, difficult to produce and dazzling in the sun, became its own economic system. A single plume could buy favors, land, or an alliance. Entire expeditions were launched not for conquest, but for better plumage. Feather money wasn't about greed. It was about beauty, community, and showing off plumage, economic and literal. If Wall Street had adopted this system, hedge fund managers would all be wearing peacock jackets to work. And whether it's feathers or Ferraris, humanity has always confused pretty with pricey. Feathers were light, airy, and symbolic. But what if your culture wanted the opposite of that? Something that screamed permanence, heft, and possibly herniated discs. Welcome to Yap Island, Micronesia, home to the world's most ridiculous currency, rhinestones. Imagine giant limestone discs, some as big as cars, with neat holes in the center. The Yappies carved them using stone tools and hauled them from neighboring islands by canoe. Many sank on the way. One famously did, yet was still accepted as payment. The community agreed that, although it lay at the bottom of the sea, it still counted. Congratulations! You've just witnessed the birth of virtual currency. Transactions didn't involve moving the stone. People just announced ownership changes. That big one near the village? Yeah, that's Bob's now. A decentralized ledger, updated verbally. Bitcoin, eat your heart out. Yap did it centuries earlier. No electricity required. Now that we've covered the heaviest money in history, let's move to the loudest. The kind that moves when you make a withdrawal. Before coins, humans measured wealth in livestock. Cows, goats, camels, sheep, the world's first walking bank accounts. In ancient Greece, warriors priced armor in oxen. In Africa, the Maasai still defined status by cattle count. Cows bought brides, sealed peace deals, and occasionally trampled your savings. It was a practical system. Your wealth could literally reproduce. Try getting your bank account to do that. But it also had problems. A drought could wipe out your assets, and a thief didn't need to hack you. He just needed a rope. Still, there's something poetic about an economy where wealth is alive, breathing, and occasionally lowing in disapproval. But suppose you're a proud samurai, and your honor prevents you from taking payment in livestock. You'd want something more refined, something civilized. In feudal Japan, cash was for peasants. The nobility and samurai preferred rice. One koku, about 150 kilograms, was considered enough to feed one person for a year. Feudal lords measured their power in koku, and samurai were literally paid in it. Rice wasn't just food, it was financial philosophy. Eventually, rice warehouses started issuing receipts redeemable for actual grain. Merchants traded those slips instead of hauling sacks around, basically inventing paper money centuries before Europe caught up. Of course, rice-based economies had their hazards. Bad harvest equals instant recession, and eating your paycheck was both temptation and tragedy. But while Japan made rice its ruler, Africa and Europe preferred something tougher. The kind of money that could plow a field or stab a neighbor. In pre-colonial West Africa, money often came in the shape of iron bars, hoes, or blades. These were both currency and hardware store inventory. Iron was the backbone of life. It built homes, made weapons, and grew food. It was also delightfully multifunctional. A hoe might buy you a chicken, a spear might buy you a goat, and if all else failed, you could just farm your finances back. The Celts did something similar with iron rings. Wore on the body, ready for use. The ultimate wearable wallet. Compared to today's contactless payments, these were literally contact payments. When metal rusted and rice rotted, humanity turned to something softer, warmer, and much more fashionable. Across pre-modern Africa, Asia, and the Indian Ocean, cloth wasn't just clothing. It was cash. The Ashanti traded with woven strip cloths. The Swahili coast used imported Indian textiles called malembo, and the Chinese emperors accepted silk as tax payment. Even Mongol Khans couldn't resist the allure of fine fabric. Cloth had everything you wanted money: portable, durable, and fabulous. Plus, it looked far better in candlelight than a handful of coins. And if the economy crashed, at least you could make a nice outfit out of your savings. A bailout plan no central bank has ever considered. But let's be honest, all this talk of fabric, rice, and salt is making us thirsty. And that brings us to the only currency that people have never stopped loving. In colonial America, rum and whiskey were as good as cash. Farmers paid debts in barrels. Soldiers received wages in spirits. Taverns ran entirely on booze-based credit systems. Taxes in Virginia could be paid with rum. That's not fiscal policy. That's happy hour governance. Elsewhere, vodka served as shadow currency in Russia, and European traders plied African markets with gin and brandy. Economists call this liquid assets. And they weren't wrong. Sure, the accounting was tricky. A night of overspending could wipe out both your balance and your memory. But you can't say it wasn't efficient. Every transaction came with built-in customer satisfaction. Of course, some societies preferred currencies that, well, didn't come with hangovers, unless you count existential dread. In some Melanesian and Indonesian island societies, notably Nias, prestige was measured in human skulls. They weren't just macabre decorations. They represented power, lineage, and victory. A man's wealth could literally be counted in craniums, exchanged as bride price, or displayed to show strength. To modern sensibilities, it's horrific, but symbolically, it's the same as Wall Street trophies or luxury watches. Both say, look how many people I've conquered. Economists call it non-fungible assets. Anthropologists call it, better look out for members of that tribe. Skulls were out, but teeth? chic, compact, and perfect for anyone who wanted to look civilized while still paying with body parts. For centuries, ivory was luxury incarnate, the white gold of Africa and Asia. Elephant tusks became currency, tribute, and eventually global tragedy. African kingdoms paid taxes in ivory. European empires demanded it for piano keys and billiard balls. It was beautiful, yes, but also drenched in blood. Ivory reminds us that value often follows vanity. We prize it not because we needed it, but because it was rare, smooth, and heartbreakingly hard to replace. Even today, the phrase ivory tower captures that same mix of purity and disconnect. Money, meet morality. They've never quite gotten along. Feeling depressed? Good. Let's end on something more practical. The one currency you could literally fry for dinner. In medieval Scandinavia and early Newfoundland, dried cod, stockfish, was a legitimate medium of exchange. Why? Because it didn't spoil, traveled well, and fed half of Europe on meatless Fridays. Norwegian merchants even used official fish weights to ensure honesty. Imagine walking into a bank with a sack of haddock. "Good morning, sir. I'd like to make a deposit." Careful, it's still a bit fragrant. It was the ultimate honest money, tangible, edible, and, in a pinch, dinner. Economists today would call it the cod standard. Across time, one truth unites all these absurd currencies. Value is whatever we agree it is. From cowries to cacao, rice to rice stones, people have traded in beauty, survival, and sheer imagination. A Yapese villager could own a stone lying at the bottom of the sea and still be rich. A Roman soldier's paycheck could dissolve in hot water. An Aztec could sip his savings in a mug. Modern money isn't any different. Our banknotes are just fancy paper. Our digital balances are yap stones in cyberspace. The system only works because we believe it does. So, the next time you tap your phone to pay for a latte, remember, you're continuing a 5,000-year-old tradition of collective delusion, one that once involved feathers, fish, and a very famous rock that fell into the ocean. And that, my friend, is priceless.